Hi everybody, and thanks for following my channel. It's been an interesting year for us all. I just noticed that today, I'm recording this in December, another one of my predictions has come true, which is the one that is about the drone attack on London. We've had, of course, a drone attack on Gatwick. But today's not about predictions. I want to talk today a little bit about past lives, about how to a technique for how to remember past lives. I mean, there's lots of techniques, but also something I was thinking about is how similar this technique is to what happens in mediumship, and I'll explain a little bit about that towards the end of this recording, because as you know, I'm doing some theatre soon with my wife Jane, and we're going to be at Fareham and we're going to be at Bournemouth doing our first ever theatres for a tour. So come along and see that, and you'll see mediumship in action, and you might even notice some of the techniques appearing as I do my work on stage. But today I want to talk about past lives in particular, and a particular aspect of how I understand one can access past lives. Now, I'm looking again at Indian ideas here, because in India we have the great text that was written by a man called Patanjali, who was a sort of like a god man really to the Indians, who wrote all the first ideas down about what yoga is and what it means. Not just, I'm not talking about, he didn't really so much write about physical yoga. He talked about asana, but more meant that as the seat position. But in the yoga sutras by Patanjali, he talks about this idea of what he calls the vrittis. In fact, he opens the text of the Yoga Sutras with, I think it goes, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. You chant that, you know, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And that actually means, lots of ways people translate it, but yoga's kind of means that yoga is the neutralization of the vortices of feeling. Okay, so it's the yoga, which means union, which means becoming enlightened, which means entering this state of samadhi. Two states of samadhi, but the highest states of samadhi is when all the vibrations of the mind, all the vibrations of the soul, all that is our feeling, all that is our knowledge of ourselves dissolves. Now these vrittis are the vibrations that need to dissolve. They are what make up us. They are our consciousness, our self-consciousness. And they are, in effect, like some people call them like memories, some people call them like feelings, but that doesn't really explain it all. It's kind of the energy, the vortex of these energy that constitutes our existence, right? And these are all lined up in the spine. The spinal column has this energy from these vrittis in it. And that's why a lot of work is done in yoga with things like Kundalini and Kriya, because they cleanse and change the energy in the spine to help release these vrittis. Now these vrittis are also brought to us and accumulated through our past lives. So in order to know our past lives, we need to be able to become aware of and observe what we call the vrittis. So, I hope I'm not getting too complicated using all this Indian language, but let's say these are like the memories that are blocked up in us, like energy, right? So, in some cases, people have brought forward energy from past lives that can be quite crippling to us even, you know. I mean, people have been taken back through past life regression and maybe lost a finger or something in a hand cut off by a sword in a past life, for example. And in this life they've got no finger, you know. Or Jane and I had the case where we noticed we both had a similar dream of being attacked from behind and beheaded, you know, and we both had this mark across the back of our neck for a long time. It's gone now, but a birthmark that suggested to us that we were beheaded, you know. And our daughter Danielle had it when she was born too. So it makes you wonder, you know, because as in past lives we bring forward all these knowledge from the past that comes out in our body, but also is even more so in our brain, in our mind, in our thoughts, in our memory, in our habits. All those tendencies are there because of something from before. I mean, we all come into this life much the same as babies, don't we? But we're all very different people, particularly when we observe ourselves as children and observe our own children. You know, some children can be angelic, some can be bloody nuisance from the start, you know, because we all have a natural tendency within us. Right? And all the people from our previous lives come together too. That's why perhaps the similar mark Jane, myself and my daughter had. So all these things, all these tendencies are there in our mind, and what they Patanjali called the vrittis. Now, these are like blocks of energy. But how can we... So if we can observe these, we can observe kind of who we are now and who we were. We can see what's influencing us. So... maybe the first step is to perhaps just use your logical mind and write down all the things that are your natural tendencies. You know, I have a tendency towards liking ice cream. Why do I like ice cream, right? I have a tendency to get cross in certain situations. I have a tendency to be nonconformist. These are things for me, you know. But write down your own type of list of all the things about your character. You know, and you've got to be honest with yourself with this. And all your weaknesses, particularly, write them all down on a list, right, before you begin your meditation. Now, in meditation, I always feel that the essence for me of meditation is being able to separate myself from the stream of my thoughts. This is why I'm a medium, I feel, because I can separate my consciousness, whatever that is, whoever I am, but I can separate my consciousness from the stream of my thoughts, and I observe my own thoughts. I'll come to this about the mediumship in a minute. But we can observe a tendency in ourselves. So if we allow something to come up in our mind and we observe it, right, there's techniques to get to this ability to observe, but this, if we can get into this state where we're able to observe and we see a thought come up, and we observe it as a tendency within ourselves, as what is called a vritti, a number of things happen. First of all, that can expand. It can become a bit more, you can, as you bring your attention to it, you know, it might come in the form of a picture. I'm a very visual thinker. Sometimes for me it comes in a picture. It might come in the form of a feeling. You know, a strong feeling of fear. Where did that come from? Observe it, go into it, look at it, look at it, look at it. Pictures might appear, ideas might appear, memories might appear in this life, and then maybe memories from other lives. You see? It all starts to unfold. But the important thing is to keep that distance all the time. Don't get sucked into it. Because if you get sucked into these memories, you've had it, because you're going to be all into or lost, and in no time you're lost again, and you're back to normal consciousness. Keep your observation there. Just observe it, completely uncritical. You know, you're not without. It might be a fear thing, but you're observing it without fear in yourself. Or it might be a love thing, and you might observe it without love in yourself. You're just neutral, right? And as we observe this, they unfold to us. Okay, so this is how, in a way, we observe our past lives. Okay, so I've oversimplified this, and it always may sound very complicated too, because but at the same time, all it is simple inner observation, learning to do simple inner observation, and recognizing that some of these things called vrittis, these locked up vortexes of energy, are actually part of ourselves. So we just observe it. Now, the simple act of observation in itself will release the energy of that vritti, right? So by looking at it, by observing it, by bringing it into the light of our consciousness rather than influences behind, as it were, from our unconscious, by bringing it into the light of our consciousness, the knottiness, as it were, the lockedness of that vritti, the vortex of that vritti will release and will become energy that becomes our energy, our psychological, physical energy, fantastic energy. So the more we do this, the more we do these observations of what is from our previous lives and what is, we make vrittis now too in our normal life. We make vrittis by eating meat, for example, they say, because that creates blocked vortices. But by sheerly observing the these like vortexes of our thought, we can release the energy. So it sounds a bit complicated when I talk about it, vortexes, and it sounds a bit, I hope that's simplified enough. But simple inner observation of our thoughts and recognition that what we are seeing may be coming from our own thoughts from today, it may be coming from our fears and feelings from this life, but also from previous lives. And by observing the trends that come back over and over again in ourselves, it gives us clues about who we are. Because certain trends are going to be there. I'm a non-conformist. I must have been very much a non-conformist in previous lives, right? I'm a person that loved art, right? I love painting. I must have had something connected with painting in a previous life somewhere, although that hasn't come up in my nadis. And various other things, the things that come up, the things that make us are there because of previous lives. And our connections with other people are very similar. Why we have a connection with others? We might be born with an enemy, right? And that's why a marriage might not go right, because we've had to come real close and do the battle face to face, hand to hand, as it were. Or we might be born and we might marry somebody that we're really close to, and that might have been someone that we were previously close to in our previous lives. And so there's certain people we can get on with instantly, and other people was immediate conflict. But we're always bringing these things into our lives by the power of magnetism, spiritual magnetism. We pull it all back. We meet everybody again in this life. All the people are important to us we've been with before. But I'm talking here about going to the part that's within us, which is the power of our past life. This is where it's really important to break those energies and ties from the past. Because if we can break those ties, we have, every time we break a tie, more energy is released. And this can also be done through yoga, and in particular through the Kriya Yoga, where we work with the spine and the breath. That's another topic. But anyway, also I just wanted to say that this whole process I'm talking about is very similar to what I do as a medium. I talked about this field of consciousness where I observe thoughts coming up in front of me, as it were, observing them without any criticism, neutral. And sometimes those thoughts might be from past lives, sometimes might be from my life, but sometimes those thoughts are from other people. And those thoughts can be projected onto the screen of my consciousness, if I allow it, by the spirit world. And that's why all I have to do when I do my spiritual work is observe within. When I'm doing my mediumship, I observe within, and it impresses upon me, and I get the feeling of who that person is in spirit. I feel for a short while like an old lady that was good at cooking, that hid in the air raid shelter, that was deaf, all those type of qualities that are impressed upon my consciousness by the spirit world. And then I get the sense, my name is Elizabeth or something, and that's how I get it, by observing. I'm not tied up in it. I'm observing the consciousness. I'm observing this and getting an impression upon the field of my consciousness. So mediumship works very similar in some respects to this idea I'm putting forward to you here about remembering past lives. Hope that's not too complicated. It's all really about self-observation, and by self-observation and inner observation we release energy. I think that's important, and that mediumship and this idea of remembering past life, I believe, is a very similar process. Anyway, hopefully that's something interesting to inspire your thoughts. It's way off from the idea of Christmas stuff, but hope you have a happy Christmas, everybody, and do come and see us in the new year at the theatre. Obviously, we're keen to get the place full, so it's at Fareham, and we also have one later on in Bournemouth. You can see there'll be links on this to find out all about it, but also go to my website at psychics.co.uk, where you can get links to the tickets and things, and you'll see perhaps how mediumship works. Hopefully, if I get it right, you never know until you stand up on the platform. Okay, lovely to be in touch with you all. Thank you so much for all of you following. Some very, very interesting comments from everybody. If you ever have any questions, please put them in the comments. I try to answer what I can. Obviously, I can't answer everything, and any ideas you have for future videos, appreciated too. Okay, bye for now.